Welcome back to the third class of 15 days TCS MQT cracking. Today we are going to discuss the important topics and important questions from data interpretation and number systems. And basically we are going to finish off the numerical segment today. From next week we are going to start from the logical sections. Let us start with some few more questions. Let us see this first question. What they are saying, there is 60% increase in an amount in 6 years at simple interest. So the amount has increased by 60% at its simple interest over 6 years. What will be the compound interest of rupees 12,000 after 3 years at the same rate? So they are telling us that a sum of amount has increased 60% over 6 years at simple interest. Now they are asking that the same amount, if kept in 3 years at 3 years of 12,000, then what will be the compound interest? So in both of these scenario, the rate of the interest is same. So from the first relation, we have to find out the rate and use that rate to find out the total compound interest amount in the third equation. So let us just first write this equation. So let us imagine that our principal amount is P. So increase in 60%, 60% increase in P is equal to 1.6 into P. 1.6 into P, that is your 60% increase in your principal amount. So according to this question, principal plus principal into rate of interest into time. This is the formula for simple interest is equal to 1.6 of P. Fine. What we can do? We can take P as common from the left hand side. So we can write P 1 plus R into T equal to 1.6 into P. We can cancel P from both of the sides and we will get 1 plus RT, R into T equal to 1.6, that is equal to R into T equal to 0.6. Now the time is 6 years, so we are going to replace T with 6, that is R into 6 equal to 0.6, that gives us R equal to 0.1, that is your rate of interest. Now this is one way of writing this equation. You can also write P into R into T equal to 60% increase. 60% increase means the rate of interest or the simple interest amount is 60% of the total principal amount. So this part of this equation will be equal to 60% of the principal amount. So you can just see that if we cancel P from both of these sides, we are exactly reaching at this position of the equation, that is R into T equal to 0.6. And in both of this equation, you can find the value of R, that is 0.1. Now we have to find or we have to calculate the compound interest. And to calculate the compound interest, rate is 0.1, that is 10%. Principal amount is 12,000 and the time is 3 years. So according to the formula, we know that the total compound interest amount is equal to principal into 1 pi r by n to the power n into t. And what are these terms? P is our principal amount R is our rate of interest, T is our time, and N is the number of N is the number of times the amount is compounded. Amount is compounded. So we are going to study about this N factor a little bit later. So we are going to actually solve questions where this N comes into play. In this particular situation, only once in whole year the rate is compounded, so N will be equal to 1 in this question. So we can just put the values in this equation. So this sum is 12,000 into 1 plus rate of interest is 0.1. Here the value of N is 1 and it is 3 into 1. So we can actually solve this one. To solve, we can use some general methods. 12,000 into, this is going to become 1.1 to the power 3. That is your total amount. But in the question, they have asked us to find the total compound interest. So they want to know the total amount of interest that we have received after 3 years. So it will be 12,000 into 1.1 cube minus 12,000. So we can take 12,000 common. So it will be 1.1 whole cube minus 1. So this is going to give us 12,000 into 0.331. So the final answer and final calculation of this one is 3972. So this is option number B. Now, let us mark few things. In this particular question, we have to use calculator, but we have to limit the number of times we have to use our calculator. So only 2 times I'm going to use my calculator. First time I'm going to use my calculator at this point where I'm going to calculate the cube of 1.1. Maybe if you do enough questions in numericals, maybe you will also remember this value. So this is an optional part where you can touch the calculator, and this is your final part where you have to touch the calculator. But throughout the rest of the question, please do not touch the calculator. Try to touch the calculator as little as possible, because every time you're trying out the online calculator, you are losing on the precious time of solving the question. You have to see two things: whether this question, whether I can solve this question or not. And second of all is that if I solve this question, if this question is going to be solved in as little as amount of time possible. So remember two things: time as well as accuracy. So let us go to the next question. So they're saying that A, B, and C can do a piece of work in 24 days. A can do a piece of work in 24 days. B can do a piece of work in 30 days. And C can do a piece of work in 40 days. So let us tabulate this fact. A can do in 24 days. B can do in 30 days. And C can do in 40 days. Same amount of work. They began to work together, but C left after 4 days before the completion of the work. How many days? In how many days the work was completed? Let us We can assume few things here. First thing is that A is taking 24 days to complete a work. B is taking 30 days to complete a work, and C is taking 40 days to complete a work. So A 24 days, B 30 days, and C 40 days. We know that the LCM of 24, 30, and 40 is 240. So let us assume that the total work is of 240 units. I don't know what what this work is. I'm just naming it as like the total work is of 240 unit. So A is doing 10 unit of work per day, B is doing 8 unit of work per day, and C is doing 6 unit of work per day. So again we can see this. So 240 divided by 24 is 10. So A is doing 10 unit of work. 240 divided by 30 is 8. So B is doing 8 unit of work. 240 divided by 40 is 6. So C is doing 6 unit of work. Now let us come to the question. Let us assume that the total work was completed in X days, and we have to find this value for X. A, B, and C together work for X minus 4 days, and C and C left just before the 4 days, before the completion of the work. So I can say that A and B together worked for only 4 days. So A plus B into 4. Now what we know is that this total work, this total amount of work should be 240 unit, because this is the total amount of work that we know. So we can formulate our equation like this. We can write A plus B plus C into X minus 4, because for X minus 4 days A, B and C worked together, and for the next or for the last 4 days only A and B worked together, and the total amount of work they managed to complete was 240 units. We know the value of A and B. A is 10 unit per day, B is 8 unit per day, and C is 6 unit per day. So total in one day, A, B and C can contribute 24 unit of work, and this 24 unit of work went on for X minus 4 days, plus 4 into A plus B. A plus B is 18 equal to 240. So let's see, we can simplify this equation. So 10 plus 8 plus 6 is 24. So this is 24x minus 24 into 4 plus 18 into 4 equal to 240. If I'm not wrong, let's see. We can just review our thing again. So this is 24. So this will be 24x minus 4 into 24 plus 8 into 4. This is 4. So we can take 4 common from here. So this is x minus 4 common, 4 into 24 minus 18, that is 6, equal to 24. We can take 6 common from both these sides. So this will become 4x minus 4 equal to 40. So this will become 4x equal to 44. We can take the 4 on this side, and x is equal to 11 days. So the total work was finished in 11 days. So this is a simple trick I use. Instead of going into complicated reciprocals, what I do is that I assume the total unit of work that has to be done. And this total unit of work is usually the LCM of the number of days that we all have. And using this everything, we can find the total amount of work that can be done. So anyways, I hope this question was clear to you. Now let us go to the next question. So it is an important question. They're telling us that A and B started a joint investment. A and B started a business jointly. A's investment was thrice the investment of B, and the period of investment was two times the period of investment of B. If B received rupees 4,000 at profit, then their total profit is. So this is a new kind of a question. So let us see how we can actually solve this question. So how can we find out the total ratio of profit? Let us imagine that we have person 1 and person 2. They are starting a business. So how person 1 and person 2 can contribute to the business financially? P1 can give X amount of money, P2 can give Y amount of money. It is not just about money, it is also the amount. It is also about the time till which P1 and P2 is investing the money. So say suppose P1 is investing the money for T1 time and P2 is investing the money for T2 time. So the ratio of profit P1 divided by P2 will be X into T1 divided by Y into T2. So what we can learn from this equation, if X is higher, then the ratio of profit is also going to be higher. If time is higher, then again profit is also going to be higher. So the profit earned by a partner is dependent upon the money that he or she is spending with the amount of time he or she has invested the money for. So according to this question, A started a business jointly. A's investment was thrice the investment of B, and the period of investment was two times the period of investment of B. As we can see, A has invested more money, as well as A has invested the money for a longer period of time. So what we can do, we can make a simple chart like investment, how much money one has invested, and how much time that the money was invested for. So A and B. Fine. Now let us assume that B has invested X amount of money. So A is going to invest 3x amount of money. B has invested the money for T time. So A is going to invest that money for 2 into T time. So now the ratio of profit will be A by B will be equal to 3x into 2t divided by x into t. So x cancel, t and t is cancel. So the ratio or the proportion of their profit will be 6 is to 1 or 6 by 1. Now let us come to the fact that B has received 7,000, oh sorry, B has received 4,000 as profit, then their total profit is. So if the ratio of profit is 6 by 1, then B has received 1/7 of the total profit. And what do we know? 1/7 part of the total profit is rupees 4,000. So, so the total profit is of 28,000. That is our option number B. And let us check if we can find the profit of A and profit of B individually or not. So the total ratio or the total part of profit by A is 6 by 7 into 28,000, that is equal to 4. So that will be equal to 24,000, and the profit of B will be, we know that this is going to be 4,000 only. So this is 4,000. So the total profit earned is 28,000. A has earned 24,000 and B has earned 4,000. So the total profit both of them together earned was 28,000. So this is our final answer. So it might have happened that they have asked you the different profit, like what was the profit for A, what was the profit for B. So this might be the question. So we can try another question, similar type of a question. We are going to use the same strategy, same form, just that this question is little bit longer and it contains more name. So it has three names. Aman, this is one name. Raki, this is another name. And we have Sagar. This is a question of again investment and everything. So we are going to make a simple table. So investment and time. And we are going to make table from each of them. So here is Aman, and then there is Raki, and then there is Sagar. So there are three people in the business. Now Aman started a business investing 70,000 rupees. So the total investment of Aman is 70 into 10 to the power 3, or I can just write here as K. So this will be 70K for the ease of representation. Why I'm writing here is K, because it might happen that every time you are writing three zeros, in some step you might add an extra zero, and in some step you might forget to have one zero. So this is going to affect your answer. So that is why instead of writing three zeros, I'm just writing here a single K. Raki has joined him after 6 months with an amount of 1 lakh 5,000. So this will again be 105K. Again, Sagar joined with 1.4 lakhs. So 1 lakh is 100,000 into 1.4 by 10, or 14 by 10. This 0 and this 0 is cancelled. So this is 140K. So Sagar has invested 140K. After another 6 months, we are going into the timeline right now. So the amount of profit earned should be distributed in what ratio among Aman, Raki, and Sagar respectively. 3 years after Aman started the business. So the total amount of time, or the total duration of time for which the money was invested was 36 months. Aman started the business and he was the first person to invest in the business. So the total time he invested the money was for 36 months. Raki joined him after 6 months. So Raki invested for 30 months. And Sagar joined them with 1.4 lakhs after another 6 months. So 24 months. So Aman invested 70K rupees for 36 months. Raki invested 105K rupees for again 30 months. Sagar invested 140K for 24 months. So what will be the ratio? The ratio will be 70 into K into 36. That is for Aman. Then for Raki, this will be 105K into 30. And for Sagar, it will be 140K into 24. Now, this K, and this K will be cancelled. So what we are left with? We are left with 70 into 36 is to 105 into 30 is to 140 into 24. Now, this is 10 if we divide it by 7. This is 1 and 15, and this is 20. This is 6, this is 5, and this is 4. So the new ratio is 10 into 6 is to 15 is to 5 is to 20 is to 4. So this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. So this is 2 into 6 is to 3 is to into 5 is to 4 into 4. So I don't think it can be further reduced. So the final ratio is 12 is to 15 is to 16. So the correct option is option number D. What did we learn? The ratio of the profit is dependent upon the amount that one is investing multiplied by the amount of time which one has invested the money for. These are the two factors that is going to decide the amount of final profit that a person is going to earn from the business. So I hope this question was understandable to you. If you haven't understood the question, I would urge you to go through this video again, go through the questions again, try the question on your own. Then, if you have any doubt, you can leave in the comments below. I will try to solve your doubt and help you out with such type of questions. Now, again, this is a question for your profit and loss. What they're saying is that a person borrows rupees 5,000 for 2 years at 4% per annum simple interest. He immediately lends it to another person at 6.14% per annum for 2 years. Find him, find his gain in the transaction per year. So first of all, a person borrows money at 4% per annum simple interest. Then whatever money that the person has borrowed, he has lent that money to somebody else at 6.14% per annum. So what is the total gain in this final transaction? So let us first calculate the total amount of interest that the person has to pay. So the amount is 5,000 plus 5,000. The rate of interest is 4%. So this will be 4 by 100 into 2. So the total amount that the person has to return at the end of 2 years is 5,400. So this is your equation number 1. Again, this is a very simple question, and he has lent this money at 6.14%. So this will be 5,000 plus 5,000 into it will be 6.14 divided by 100 into 2. So that comes out to be 5614. That is your equation number 2. So the person has to pay this much amount of money, but this person is also getting this much amount of money. So if we do things, we are going to get 214 rupees. So this person is going to earn 214 rupees in the course of 2 years. That means that person, 214 is not the answer. They have asked to find the gain in this transaction per year. He is earning 214 rupees in the course of 2 years. So the person is going to earn 214 divided by 2, that is 107 rupees per year. So the total gain is rupees 107.00. So I guess this was clear to you. This was an easy question. Let us go to the next question. This is an important type. Actually, there are four questions hidden in these two questions, or rather, I can say there are three types of questions in this particular slide. So, first, let us check the questions of what they are saying. They are saying that at what time between 5:30 and 6 will the hands of a clock be at right angle? So we have a clock. So they are asking us between 5:30 and 6 at what time the hands of clock will be at right angles. So we know that around by the time it is going to inch towards 6 p.m. so the hands of the clock will be something like that. So this will not be like total at this will not be at exactly 90 degree at 45 minutes past 5. So we have to find out at what time the hands of the clock will be at right angle. So let us see how we can actually approach this question. Let us start thinking. First, we have to find out what is the initial angle between the hour hand and the minute hand. So the time is 5:30 p.m. and what will be the angle between the hour hand and minute hand? So let us imagine a clock. So a clock has 12 divisions like this. So the hour hand moves 12 places over a single day. That means hour hand takes 12 iterations to complete 360 degree. So at every hour, the hour hand is completing 30 degree. Fine. The whole face of the clock is 360 degree and there are 12 hours in this clock. So for every hour, the hour hand is covering a distance of 30 degree. Similarly, there is 360 degree at the face of clock and 60 minute in per hour. So every minute, this minute hand is covering 6 degree distance. So every hour, the hour hand is completing 30 degree and every minute, this minute hand is covering 6 degree. So what will be the initial position of the or what will be the initial angle between the hour hand and the minute hand? In some of the TCS question, they have also asked us what is the initial angle or what is the angle between hour hand and minute hand. So we can use this particular method to find out the initial angle. So let us imagine the total time or the total time in the clock is 5 hours 30 minutes. So the hour hand has completed 5 hours and then it has completed another 30 minutes. So the hour hand has completed 5 plus 1.5 hours because throughout the time in which the minute hand is revolving, our hand also slightly moves. So at 5:30 p.m. The hour hand has moved 5 plus half hours, so that equates to 11 by 2 hours. And we know that for every hour, the hour hand has to complete 30 degree. So for 11 by 2 hours, it has to complete 11 by 2 into 30. That is equal to 165 degree. This is our value number 1. So we are going to mark this part as important. Now, the minute hand has covered 30 minutes. So this will be 30 into 6, that is 180 degree. Minute hand has covered, so it is like something like this. So if we consider from 12, minute hand has covered a degree and hour hand has covered a dash degree. So the initial angle or the angle between the hour hand and the minute hand will be A minus A dash. That means angle inscribed by the minute hand minus the angle inscribed by the hour hand, whichever is the larger. So we can see that 180 degree is larger. So the initial angle is 180 degree minus 165 degree, that is equal to 15 degree. So the initial angle between the hour hand and the minute hand is 150 is 15 degree. But what we want 90 degree. So we already have an angle of 15 degree. We are yet to cover 75 degree. Now, how many minutes we are going to take to cover 75 degree? Let us think, or let us imagine one thing. Per minute, uh, minute hand is covering 6 degree. Every hour, the hour hand has covering 30 degree. So 30 30 divided by 60, that is equal to half degree. That means at every minute, at every minute, our hand is completing half degree. And in a single hour, the hour hand is covering 30 degree, and in every minute, our hand is covering half degree. So the relative angle covered by hour hand and minute hand per minute is 6 minus half, that is 5 by half degree. So every minute, the relative distance or the relative angle between your hour hand and your minute hand is 5.5 degree. So we have to cover degree 75 degree, and every minute we are covering 5.5 degree. So 75 divided by, so this is 11 by 2, 11 into 2. This is the amount of minute that we are going to take to cover 75 degree. We are calculating it after 5:30 because we have calculated the initial angle at 5:30. So So we have to add 30 minutes in. So this amount of minute will be after 30, that is 5:30. So this gives us 75 into 2 plus 330 divided by 11, and this gives us 43.7 by 11. So at 43.7 by 11, that is option number B, at 43.7 by 11 minute past 5, the hour hand and the minute hand will be exactly at 90 degree. Fine. So let us apply this particular knowledge from this question to this question. At what time between 7 and 8 o'clock will the hands of a clock be in the same straight line but not together? So they are telling us at what time it will be 180 degree. So what is the angle inscribed at exact 7 o'clock? At exact 7 o'clock, we can just imagine this is at 12 and this is at 7. So 7 and 12, they have a total distance of 8, 9. So they have 8 here, 9 here, 10 here, and 11 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So total 5 iterations. And what we know, at every iteration we are covering around 30 degree. So we are going to get at every so the distance between them is of 25 minute, and each minute is worth of 6 degree. So the initial angle between 7 and 12 is 25 into 6, that is 150 degree. This is your initial angle. What should be the final angle? Final angle is 180 degree. So 180 degree minus 150 degree, that is 30 degree remaining. We have to cover 30 degree. And at what speed we have to cover 30 degree? What we know? The relative speed between the hour hand and the minute hand is 5.5 degree. So this will be 30 divided by 30 divided by 11 by 2, that is 60 by 11, and 60 by 11 gives us 5 by 11. So at 7 past 5 plus 5 11 minute, or 5 plus 5 11 minute past 7, the hands of the clock are exactly going to be at 180 degree. So let us check what are the few important facts here. The speed of our hand, the speed of our hand, or the angle covered by the hour hand per hour is half degree. Then the angle covered by minute hand, sorry, this is per minute. The angle covered by minute hand per minute is 6 degree. Fine. The angle covered by hour hand per minute is half degree. The angle covered by minute hand per minute is 6 degree. So relative speed between the minute hand and the hour hand is 6 minus half, that is 5 half degree. Okay. Every hour the hour hand completes 30 degree, and every minute the minute hand completes 6 degree. These are the important facts for this particular question, and using these important facts we can do these kinds of question. Let us go to the next question. It is a similar question of clock, but the method is slightly different. The clock is set right at 8 a.m. The clock gains 10 minutes in 24 hours. What will be the time when, what will be the true time? True time when the clock indicates 1 p.m. on the following day. So I have set the time at 8 a.m. and next day 8 a.m. That means in the duration of 24 hours, my clock has gained 10 minutes. Fine. I'm checking my clock at 1 p.m. So at 1 p.m., that means the difference of 5 hours, my clock is going to earn 5 into 5 hours into 10 by 24 minutes, because every hour, every hour, every hour, every hour I'm earning 10 by 24 minutes. So in 5 hours, I will be earning 5 into 10 by 24 minutes, that is equal to 24 by 12. So over the course of 24 hours, I have earned 10 minutes, and apart from this 10 minutes, I have also earned 25 by 12 minutes. So the total amount of time earned by me is 12.08 minutes, that can be approximately written as 12 minutes. So when the clock shows 1 p.m. the next day, we are actually we are actually 12 minutes ahead of the actual time. Let me repeat this fact again. So on the next day, when the clock is showing 1 p.m., we are actually 12 minutes ahead of the true time. So the actual time will be 1 p.m. minus 12 minutes, that is going to give us 48 minutes past 12. So the actual time is 48 minutes. passed well. So I hope this question was clear to you. Now let us go to the next question. Okay. So we are back again at a simple interest question. Let us see what's our question. The sum of money lent at a compound interest for 2 years at 20% per annum would fetch rupees 482 more if the interest was payable half yearly than it is if it was payable annually. So there are ways of compounding the interest. Either the rate of interest can be compounded yearly, or the rate of interest can be compounded half yearly. That means every year, if the compound interest is compounded only once, so this is known as payable annually, and in that particular condition or in that particular situation, n is equal to 1 in the previous equation that we have seen. If the amount is compounded half yearly, that means the amount is compounded twice in a particular year. So this will be n equal to 2. Or other way, we can think that for 2 years, for 2 years, 2 years, the amount was compounded half yearly. Then the total amount or the total number of installments will be 2 into 2, that is 4 installments, like 4 times your amount was compounded. If it was payable annually, that means for 2 years, it will be only compounded once every year. So the number of installments will be 2 here. So this is the significance of n. So they are saying that uh, let us first like calculate our like different rate of interest. So for the first case, when n is equal to 1, n is equal to 1, the equation will be p 1 plus 0.2, that is the rate of interest, divided by 1 by 1 into 2. This is t and this is n, this is n. So if we simplify this, we are going to get p 1.2 whole square. Now, if n is equal to 2, then the formula or the amount is p into 1 plus 0.2 divided by 2 bracket, and this will be uh, 2 into 2. So we are going to have p into 1.1 to the power 4. Now what they are saying is that if the amount is compounded half yearly, then it is going to fetch us more amount than if the amount was compounded yearly. And what is the difference? The difference is of 482 rupees more. So we can write p 1.1 to the power 4 minus p 1.2 to the power 2 equal to 482. So like what is the difference? So the difference between them is p into 0.0241 is equal to 482. Now p equal to 482 divided by 0.0241. Let us think some ways to simplify it rather than doing raw calculation. 482 into 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 zeros. So this will be 0, 0, 0, 4 zeros divided by 241. And 241 into 2 is 482. So the final sum is 20,000 rupees. So the principal amount is 20,000 rupees. So I hope this was easily understandable. Now let us go to the next question. It is a question of probability. Three unbiased coins are tossed. What is the probability of getting at most two heads? Now let us first design our sample space. T means tail and H means head. So what do we know? The sample space will be T, T, T. Then this is our first case. Then another sample case possible is T, T, H. Then another sample case will be T, H, T. Another sample case will be T, H, H. So here I have repeated T and H alternatively, like once T, then H, then T, then one H. Here I have repeated twice, like T, T, H, H, and this is 4 times. These are 4 combinations. There will be total 8 combinations. How? Like every coin has two faces, like 2 into 2 into 2. So total 8 combinations. We have written 4 combinations here. The rest of the 4 combinations will be H, 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 H. This will be T, T, H, H. It will be T, H, T, H. Now, this is 0 head. This is 1 head. This is 1 head. This is 2 head. This is 1 head. This is 2 head. This is 2 head. And this is 3 head. So at most 2 heads. This is 0 head. This is acceptable. 1 head, acceptable, acceptable, acceptable. This is also acceptable. This is acceptable. This is acceptable. This is not acceptable. So out of the 8 cases, we have total 7 favorable cases. So the probability that probability of getting at most 2 heads when a 3 unbiased coins are tossed is 7 by 8. So your final answer is option number C, that is 7 by 8. This is an interesting question again. There is a little trick associated with this question. So most of the students get it wrong. I chose this question because of this particular trick. So let us understand the question. How many integers greater than 999? 999 greater than I, but not greater than 4000. So not greater than 4000, that means I can be equal to 4000. This is our important information. The I can be equal to 4000 can be formed with the digits 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 if repetition of digits is allowed. So the integer should be greater than 999, but it should be less than equal to 4000. So we have total of 4 places to fill. In the first place, I can fill 1, I can fill 2, I can fill 3. Why 0 cannot be filled? Because then it will become a 3-digit number. Why 4 cannot be filled? Because the number should not be greater than 4000. If we fill 4 here, the only one option left is like 000 in the 3 places. So we are going to see 4000 separately. Let us just concentrate on 999 I less less than equal to 399, that is 1000 greater than equal to I greater less than equal to 399. To get this range, the first place can be filled with 1, 2 and 3. Second place can be filled with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Third place can be filled with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the fourth place can be filled with 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the first place can be filled in 3 ways. Then the second place is filled in 5 ways. Third place is filled in 5 ways. And this place is filled in 5 ways. So the total ways in which this number can be formed is 3 into 5 into 5 into 5. That gives us 375. But no, this is not our final answer. Most of the students get this 375 and they see 375 in the option. They are satisfied, they mark 375 and move on to the next question. But just because of a silly mistake, you have invested time upon this question and you're losing marks also. Either you get all the marks that you invested, that the time you have invested upon a question, or you don't invest time at all, because in time and marks are both important in every examination. In here the range is for greater than equal to 1000 and less than equal to 3999. But what about 4000? 4000 is also a probability, or 4000 is also a valid combination. So 4000 is only one valid combination. So one will be added to this and the final result will be 376. So mark 376 and this is your final answer. So I hope this question was understandable to you and you have understood the question properly. So this is the end for today's lesson. I have curated some more interesting questions. Please go through the practice revision test. You can find the practice revision test at www.campusprep.com. There are total now 3 tests. I would urge you to attempt those tests and see your results. You can also join our Telegram group where you can communicate directly with me, ask your doubts, and I will surely clarify all your doubts, or at least try to clarify all your doubts. You can join our Facebook page. You can also join our Instagram page. Thank you for joining us today. Let's see you. I will see you again on Monday. From Monday, I'm going to start with the logical section. So you have a weekend, you have Saturday and Sunday break. So you know what you have to do on Saturday. Go through the previous lectures from Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Do all the questions that I have discussed in the class yourself and practice the practice set questions. So in class, you have got like 30 questions. In class, we have done 10 questions each, so 30 questions plus 30 questions in the quiz part. So we have a total of 60 questions. 60 question is a huge deal. Understand understand the depth of each and every question and practice some more questions from different sites. And I will also provide you some more important question. So make it 100. Make a bet. Make a promise to yourself that you are going to practice 100 questions over this weekend. And if you see this one weekend you are practicing 100 questions, and for 5 weekend if you accumulate it everything, you can easily practice more than 500 questions. This little habit and this little practice sessions add up to a humongous amount of questions that you will practice over the course of this course. So thank you for joining us today. See you on Monday with some more important quizzes, question sets, and solution sets. Thank you. Bye bye.